and it's actually not very diverse in terms of wildflowers. You know, it's got, I don't know how many species on there, but not many, and that's because I'm not an expert, but I assume it's because it's mowed too early. If you look at the theory, and there are probably others better placed than I am, you know, to create a proper wildflower meadow, you should not cut the meadow before at least the end of July, and preferably later. And there are also methods, for example, planting yellow rattle, which is semi-parasitic on grass, and actually start to get rid of the grass, which is what you need to create a proper meadow, a diverse meadow. So my question is, are we now in control? Is someone now in control to say, no, don't mow it now, let's mow it when the meadow experts, whoever they are, say it should be mown?
Excellent question.
Yeah, very good question. So Daphne, would you like to have a go at answering that one? Have we got Daphne with us?
Anthony did tell me that Daphne was the person.
Yeah. Have we lost Daphne? And Rebecca Smith, have you put something there in the chat function? Can one of the Task and Finish group give Daphne a ring? I think that's Daphne ringing me, actually. Hello, Daphne. Yes, I've got a question for you, Daphne. Yes, you can answer me over the telephone.
Okay.
Good. So what guys, I think you saw the question, which is about the mowing regime.
Yes.
Yeah. And so what Guy's saying is, you know, he thinks that really in terms of that it's being mowed too early, and he thinks that really it should be a later mowing. Now, you know, what we're going to say is obviously we'd have a group that's looking at that together, but what would you like to sort of reply to Guy on that one?
So yes, certainly for nature conservation, it's usually recommended that you mow in late July or even in August. But this is a generalization. So what's true for our particular meadow, it might be worth doing plant surveys this summer, and also insect surveys before we change anything, because it has been mown early for many, many, many years now. It might be worth doing plant surveys, and then when we change it next year, we'll know what effect our changing the date has had. Was there something rare which actually likes the management regime at the moment and would prefer it to stay this way? And are there other flowers which would benefit from mowing later? So I think that's a really good question. It would be really interesting for the new Friends group to get their teeth into that one.
One of the points, if I may, that for me raising it now was concerned it would yet again be mown now in June, too early. I mean, I say I'm not an expert at it, but I have read into it in some detail, and I just wonder if we are now to leave the routine as it was, mow it again, we're losing a year in terms of, in my view, starting to improve the diversity.
Good. So good. I think what we'll do, guys, there's going to be, as you saw on Kate's presentation, so there's going to be the chance where we have, you know, the first of the face-to-face Friends group meeting, and the volunteers who can come in and want to sort of do some of the sort of volunteering of management on the land. So I think that could be one of the Sally, do you want to talk? Sally?
I just wanted to say that I agree with the speaker. Guy.
Hi, Sally.
Yeah.
Sally, we met on the field.
Oh, we have
about
met.
3 months ago. Yeah.
Yeah, we did, absolutely, yeah. And no, I'm with you, absolutely. I feel it's a waste of time actually mowing it too early again this year. But it is, we are talking about it actually, and there are discussions about it. But I personally would like to mow it later, because I don't want to waste another year, and then we can see how the process goes. But I'm with you totally, and that's how I want to keep it, really.
Good. And so as you'll see, there's nobody going to be imposing an opinion on this. What we will do is bring the people together that really want to get involved and bring their knowledge to this as well, and learn to come together to reach an agreement about what happens in terms of the land. So thanks very much for raising that, Guy. Jeff, I see your hands up. Is it on that issue?
Yeah, it is. I mean, I am no way an expert on this, and there may be experts within the group, but in a previous life, I used to work for the Centre for Ecology and Hydrology, and I have a network of people there that I could approach them to find out if there's anyone who would give us some advice on this.
Maybe that'd be a good idea.
There's probably people still, that was up at Monkswood near Huntingdon, so there's probably people still in the local area that we could get in touch with. So I'm happy to reach out to them if that's useful.
Wonderful. Thank you very much, Jeff. This is exactly what we need, sort of pooling that, everybody bringing that in. So if you can get in touch with us through on the online for volunteering or just an email to us, Jeff.
He already has.
Hey! And Jenny, you put your hand down. Were you going to say anything about this issue? Or we're going to go on to the next question, I think, if that's okay. Jenny, did you have?
I was just clapping.
Oh, you're just clapping. Wonderful. Thank you. That is great. So it's very nice to have you on the phone, Daphne, but it would be even better if you were in the room. So maybe I'm going to see if somebody can help you get into the room. Is that okay?
Yes.
Excuse me, it says the meeting's at capacity. I'm doing this on my phone. I can't get in from the computer, and it's worrying me that lots of people won't be able to join you.
So I've just seen it's gone from 99 to 100, Moira. So just
Right.
So
Yeah, but
going up.
there were more than 100 in the meeting. That was all I was going to say. So
I've got capacity for 500.
no, it says there is no more room in this meeting. It says, I'll photograph it and show.
No, don't photograph it. I believe you, Moira. I will check this.
No, because I'm on the phone. I can't get in. I was trying to get in from my computer and it won't let me. You're at capacity. Allowed, it says. Maximum number allowed. Unless you can change it while you're on there.
I can change this. I can change it, Moira.
Some people frustrated. Thank you.
Thank you very much.
I did actually just want to say.
No, sorry, Moira. So I'm going to go to Matt Liversey. Matt, you've got a question there, and that was the second most popular question, sort of most interesting for people. Are you there, Matt?
Yeah, I'm here. Can you hear me?
Is it Livesey or Livesey? Sorry.
Yeah, so I just want to read with the first question as well. I emailed in about that because I didn't want to walk out and see the whole thing moan again. But yeah, so moving on to my question, I just wondered, obviously it's based in an accidental rewilding project and it's been left to grow. Obviously if it keeps growing, you're going to lose the scrubland, which is quite a rare habitat now in the UK, and it's going to go into closed woodland. So just wondering, is there an end goal for habitat management, and do you plan to get that expertise anywhere, perhaps from Wildlife Trust input or something to manage it?
Yep, good. Daphne, you're in with us now, aren't you?
Yes, I'm here. Thank you. I had the same problem as Moira, and then you helped and I got back in. Yes, absolutely. That's a really interesting question. So I think there should be a debate. Do we want to do rewilding on the Croft Close set aside, where we wait and see what happens? Because that's what's happened for the last 20 years. You know, it's just amazing what's happened with no human input. Or do we do nature conservation? And nature conservation would almost certainly say, we don't want it to be closed woodland. Now, there's already two things which are making it very slow to turn into closed woodland. And one is that there are some areas where saplings really aren't getting going. And there's some archaeological evidence that those maybe have very compacted ground there. Those areas with the short turf, they're not scrubbing up very quickly. And the other thing is that there's ash dieback. At least there's some disease which is killing the young ash trees. So where there was a closed canopy and it's shaded on the ground and no ground flora, those trees have died and now you've got new ground flora coming up. So 20 years on, no, and it's not all closed. So it could go either way. But if we go for nature conservation, then the chances are that in a few years' time, you'll be asked to come and cut down some of the large trees which are growing up in the scrub. But there is a lot of scrub there and it's very vigorous. It's going to be really interesting to see how it goes. But I do want to say the objective of the charity that's been set up is nature conservation for biological diversity, improving the biological diversity. And that gives us a lot of security that the wildlife is going to be a top priority for management there.
It's very good. Excellent.
Yeah, Rob, you've got your hand up there.
Yes, just to complement what Daphne said, in the long run, once or hopefully in the fairly short run, once the Friends organisation is established, and that all that group will elect a management committee, maybe co-opt one or two other experts, such as that was being suggested earlier, and they can take those decisions. So there will be, I mean, right now it's a little bit ad hoc because we're just getting started, but once there's an organization there, there'll be a systematic way that those decisions are taken, and there'll also be a management planning process. So we'll things that Matt was asking about, the objectives, those will then be defined through that management planning process.
Thanks very much. And then we've got somebody who didn't have their name down when they were putting the question, but quite a few people were very interested in the answer to this, which is, are there any plans to open up access into the set aside from Croft Close? Again, Daphne, you've got your hand up there if you want to answer that one.
Is that, there's a transitional management committee which is looking after the land for the moment until the Friends group can be set up. And I'm leading their site action group. And we went through all our things on our wish list, and getting a decent access at the end of Croft Close was top of our list. So there were several high things. That was one of the top ones. So in the first instance, we're going to put in some kind of pedestrian gate there right away. As soon as we can get that organised, because we have to go through all the council's financial procedures, as well as getting the right kind of gate and having it safe. But we are looking at maybe putting that in with volunteers, and at that time we'll be able to take those annoying notices saying private keep out off the gate. But at the moment it's not safe to enter there, because if you fall off that gate and fall on a spiky bush, you could hurt yourself. So that's our plan, to have first of all an access gate. Now, it's a covenant in the sale documents that we have to provide access for the central part of Abbey Farm to have pedestrians, horses, and possibly even vehicles able to use that gate. So next up, when the Friends group is going, there's going to be a debate about how to redesign that entrance so that we can have vehicle access if we need to get a machine onto the land to dig a new pond or to mow the area next to the neighbours' fences or something like that. Do we want to do that? We might need vehicle access. How to have a really satisfactory pedestrian access that enables disabled people to get on there if necessary. And whether we're going to have a footpath going the other way onto the central land. There's going to be a lot of questions, how to surface it and so on.
Good,
that's still to come.
Thanks very much. And Dan, you had a question about the naming. Are you with us, Dan? So what Dan was asking, I think was that same one, was whether or not there would be naming for the two pieces of land. But what we're saying is we're going to do a community identification of Croft Close set aside, and that will be a community naming ceremony for that one. And Claire Hunter, are you with us, Claire?
A lot of people that aren't in.
Yeah, and Claire, your question was, how are we going to ensure the rare and endangered species are protected and undisturbed by future use of the land, which I think is linked a bit to Jenny, your question. Do you want to say what your question was, Jenny?
I was just wanting to know how we were going to balance access with biodiversity and protection of the species, because obviously you have competing priorities potentially there, and how will you do that?
Rob, do you want to talk about that?
Okay, probably Daphne's the best to answer, but she's been answering all of them. So yeah, absolutely, it is a tricky task, because even though the Croft Close set aside is 11 acres, that's, and when you're trying to balance different uses, that's not a huge area, and especially if you've got different habitat types you're trying to maintain. So there will just be trade-offs to be made, and we try and keep some areas really as undisturbed as possible, and that can be done, you don't have to fence areas off, that can be just done with thickets that naturally protect against access. And then other areas which will be more heavily used, for example, there's open area where people might like to have picnics. So yeah, there will be a careful kind of balancing of objectives and trade-offs, and then you know, in this two-tier governance system that I mentioned, also when that work has been done by the Friends group with their management committee, then also the charity itself, the trustees of the charity, will always be there to sort of cross-check that there's a reasonable balance between the objectives there. So that's the way the model's supposed to work.
Mm-hmm.
Thank you.
That's very good. And Colin Barnes, Colin, you're with us. And yours was a bit of a sort of concern question, wasn't it? You were there. He was there a minute ago. They might have gone. So Collins was saying, is there a danger that other parts of the land will be used for housing? And he's wondering about SSSI status. So who'd like to answer that? In a way, this is what we've sort of saved the land from, in a way, onto the housing. Does anybody want to answer that particular question? Howard, yes.
Pippa, I think you've answered it. I mean, there was a lot of tension at the beginning of this exercise when we were trying to, I mean, some people wanted limited housing development, particularly for social housing, and some people felt that the land was just so precious that we wanted to keep it exactly as it is. And the argument that won the day was that there's plenty of land in the in the vicinity, in the close vicinity, which is perfectly good for social housing, but isn't special like these two fields. And so consequently, all of the momentum and the result is that these two pieces of land will be kept as natural open spaces, in line with not just the task and finish group's wishes, but as stipulated and as said in the neighbourhood plan. And that is now gone to referendum and being voted on. And so that is what the village wants. And in addition to that, we're talking about greenfield spaces and the fact that South Cambs District Council has turned down planning permission several times in the last 20 years. So everything points, in fact, it's, I would say, and I mean, nothing's irreversible, but let me just say that it's irreversible now, that it stays as it is. Well, having said that, you know, with permission of the Friends group and the experts who want to maintain and develop the environment in the way that the village wants it developing, so that, I mean, nothing can be quite as dogmatic as I've just sounded.
Good. So Yvonne's with us. Hi, Yvonne. Don't think you've got your video on. Hello. And you had a lovely question, Yvonne. Can you remember it?
Well, I had two.
The one that voted up was about the community supporting the new charity.
Well, good. Thank you. I was so pleased that you were so direct about asking for money. I already want to give money. You've just been brilliant in asking for it. And my 60-year-old friends next year and my grandchildren are in for this already. So thank you very much. How do we do it?
How would you do that and get the money to you, you mean, in terms of the fundraising?
Oh, no. How do we get the money to you in terms of the fundraising?
Kate.
Hi, Yvonne. That's brilliant. I'm so glad that we've enthused you. And I just want to say, actually, I'm sat here with my phone with my emails going, and we've already had about 7 or 8 more pledges come in. So thank you so much. Amazing. So yeah, it's very simple, Yvonne. At the moment, we're just recording pledges. So please go to our website, abbeyfields.online, and there's a button there literally says support us, and then you'll have two options: make a pledge or volunteer. Click on the make a pledge and the form will come up, put all your details in, and then that goes to my database. And then as soon as we're registered with the Charity Commission, I will get in touch with people, probably individually actually, to arrange that transfer. So that's the way. But thank you so much.
And there's actually
thank you. My Christmas present list is sorted. Thank you.
Brilliant.
Fantastic. There's a virtual jar going around the room right now. So if you just pass it on, put a few pounds in and pass it on, that'd be wonderful. Thank you. So somebody's come back on the housing question, saying it wasn't actually around the land that we're securing, but the land in between. And Max has said, could he come in and answer the question on housing? That would be good, Max.
Okay, thank you, Pippa. Yes, that's what I understood. It's not about the actual land that we're having. It's whether, say, the Watsons decide that they want to put a big housing estate on their estate. We can't preclude them from applying, but I think that in terms of getting permission to do something like that, it would be a very, very, very steep hurdle. And talking to the Watsons, they're not actually interested in that. The other thing is that we may be able to share that the Rowleys have actually put something covenant on the land, which will stop most people from actually trying to develop housing on the land. So I think the question is appropriate, but I don't think it should worry us, certainly in our lifetimes.
Thank you, Max. That's really helped clarify that, I think. And the great news is not only has Kate received 7 emails with sort of fundraising pledges, funding pledges, but we're up to 15 volunteers already on the volunteer sign up page just now within this time. This is just snowballing. It's wonderful. So somebody does ask, if fundraising were to fail, what would happen then? And Anthony, what would happen in terms of that situation?
Kate's not going to let the fundraising fail. No. Well, so I think that the situation we're in is that if we can, it's really just a matter of time. I think it's how quickly can we raise it, because we're not going to sort of pull out and let this sort of fail if there's at least some momentum moving forward. So even if we could just raise a little bit of money each year, eventually we'll hit our target. And I think, Howard mentioned sort of earlier in the webinar as well, the parish council are sort of backing this as well. So if we get into real difficulty, there is an out there. And I guess the worst possible outcome is that we might have to sell some or all of one of the fields to cover our costs. So but I don't think this village will let that happen. So I'm pretty relaxed. I'm betting my son's future school fees on the fact that the village will come together. So
thanks. And Martin, are you there? Martin Minerick. Hi, Martin. You had a lovely question about yeah,
I'm enjoying all the wildlife on both of these fields quite a lot. So yeah, I was wondering whether there are any plans on organizing sort of like a bio blitz, gathering some, let's say, experts in particular fields like invertebrates and stuff, and just like having a community sort of get together on the fields and just like explore all the biodiversity we have there actually.
Good. So a bio blitz where we bring everybody in who's kind of finding out what's there, and they've got experts on hand, and that all gets recorded as well officially, you're saying, Martin. Yeah. I think Daphne, do you want to talk to that?
Absolutely, yes. We'd love to know what's on there. And it's the next priority after the entrances and the safety is getting more information about the wildlife. And Rob is already talking to people who might help us with that. But if you'd like to help too, definitely get in touch. Yeah.
And I think, Siobhan, are you here with us?
Yes, I'm here.
Siobhan, so you did the last bio blitz in the village that got lots of kids involved. That's the thing that Martin's very interested in. Do you want to just say a little bit about bio blitzing?
Yes, absolutely. So we did that. Gosh, it must have been, was obviously before lockdown. So the summer before last, as part of a series of events around the village, we organised a bio blitz in Histon Wood, and it was very popular. We had a few people with some expertise and a steady succession of families, and we had various things, including little tunnels that hedgehogs walked through and left footprints, allowing us to see that they'd been there. So yeah, I mean, that would be great to organise something in Abbey Fields. Yeah.
Wonderful, fantastic. And Michael Watson, are you with us? Do you want to say hello?
Yeah, I just answered the question, actually. I think people are concerned about whether we're going to turn the rest of this into a housing development. Well, other than a large block of flats of 50 stories high, we're not going to put anything on it. So I'm of course kidding. Now, we love this place too. The reason we bought it is because I grew up here and it's a very special place. So we don't intend to do anything other. In fact, we want to work very closely with the team here and the Friends group and everything to make sure that the habitat and the environment is a continuous piece, regardless of who owns it. So nothing's forever, as Howard says. We hope we can continue to own this for the long term. But while it's in our hands, we will have the same objective.
So everybody meet Michael, and just thank you so much, Michael, for working with the community and being with us. Yeah, give him a big hand of thank you so much. And you're very, very much part of our community and in our hearts as well. So that's fantastic. Looking forward to working with you in the future. And Yvonne, you had something as well, which is about, BioBlitz with young people as well as experts. And you had something about the eco group about that. Do you want to mention that?
So my mute button, sorry. Can you hear me now?
Mm-hmm.
Okay, so the eco group at the new school have helped Ed Stonham and I with the parking around the new school, and they've done a great job, and there's posters up now about considerate parking, and so we'd love them to actually walk Abbey Fields and make sure that they understand about it. So the eco group, my grandchildren, we're supporting you too, Pippa, and thank you very much. And look out for the youngsters, because they will carry the way going forward. Brilliant, thank you.
Good, thank you. And as you saw, one of the objectives is around sort of education as well, and environmental education. So we very, very much want to work closely with the schools and with the eco groups of the young people and the guides and scouts, and so make sure that we have those kind of events with them and get them all involved and knowing it's their future too. As you'll have seen, that Anthony's put in the chat a link, because the BioBlitzes could be coming, but as part of the creation of a charity that is specifically about green spaces around Histon and Impington, as sort of evidence that what we are really doing is securing a valuable piece of land, we, with the support of the parish council, contracted some of the top ecologists that are there to do a study, and they have published that report, and the link to it is in the chat. And Nigel, are you with us? Nigel Butcher?
Yes, I'm on.
You want to just talk a little bit about that study?
Yes, so we had evidence of what sightings we'd had from a few people over the last few years. So we aimed it on the last 5 or 10 years of sightings of wildlife. So we had somebody who's a plant expert, went around with Daphne and monitored plant species last year, that was, and we've had records from some of the people, some are in the audience today, and I compiled it all together and handed it over to an ex-resident of the village, David Chandler, and he put it together and produced that report, which is going to the Charity Commission to form the CIO. And yes, a great piece. So if you've got a spare few minutes and you want to see what red, green and amber listed species and things are in there, it's not a long piece of nice pictures, nice simple read. So I urge you to go in there and have a quick look.
Good, thank you very much. And Mark Freeman, are you with us? No, I don't see him in there. And his question is sort of what's the rationale between separating out the charity and the Friends group? And I don't know, Arnold, do you want to talk to that?
Yeah, yes, I'm happy to do that. Clearly, it's a key relationship, and so some charities that own land have a membership organisation. Indeed, they will elect the trustees, and Cambridge past, present and future, for example, that owns Wandlebury, has that model. And perhaps that might be an ideal way going forward, but not actually for us, because we wanted, in a way, to ensure the foreverness about this, in the sense that Cambridge past, present and future every year has to make sure it has enough money in order to maintain the land. So it can be precarious at times for them. But they're very good, obviously, at handling their monies, but they have to get grants and so on. So we were very lucky in that we were able to share the vision with the parish council, who helped to lead on this and become partners. But by bringing in the parish council with 3 trustees and 3 trustees from the community, that established the partnership. But the legal model then was the sort that didn't have a membership. So the next best thing would be a friends group. We were encouraged by the fact that there are so many people in the village with the special skills and knowledge and passion to form a friends group that could form a management committee that the 6 trustees would feel would delegate the management of the land. So in a way, I think we will have perhaps an even more ideal arrangement than perhaps some other charities. So we will not only have the grassroots, all of us involved in the management of the land, the support, the education, the volunteering. Many people will just want to be members of the friends group to hear about what's happening, the red listed species. So there's no obligation to put on the gloves, but many other people will want to do that and get involved. My personal interest in this, apart from the loveliness of the land and walking on it, is the heritage aspect. I'm just across the road here from what in archaeological and historical terms is the original heart of the village, which is up on the ridge there. It's where the Iron Age people first came, the Romans, and we have evidence from High Ag that the Anglo-Saxons were there right from the 5th century onwards. So it's a wonderful heritage landscape, which in the crisis of the 14th century was just left abandoned. So you can see a land that really hasn't changed much. You can see the ridge and furrow. You can even see the regeneration on the Croft Close set aside, which is occurring in a linear fashion when you look from the air. And probably it's reflecting ridge and furrow ploughing from the medieval period. And just lastly, I think the Rowleys, we have to keep mentioning their name because over the last century, they played such an important part in village life. I've been in the village 30 years, but some of you will remember back to times when they had big marquees on the site, and we have lovely photographs of cycle meetings from the village on the site. And so it was actually that association, which I think is fairly unique to an enterprise of this sort, that there's that sentimental attachment and historical attachment actually going back a very long time. That gave us the courage to think that we could pull this off, that we get the support, and that a new friends group would actually get the sort of support that would be required to make sure that this happens in the long term. So it's rather a long-winded way of saying we think it's a model, a hybrid model, that is most likely to succeed.
Thank you very much, Arnold, for linking us back to the Anglo-Saxons, and just that, this is land that is entrusted from one generation to the next. And I think, as Rachel put in the chat, how important it is that it's from those childhood memories that love comes of the land and then helps make sure that it's kept forever for the community. Guy, you have your hand up, but I've also got questions, a couple of questions in the chat. And so if you don't mind, I'll go to those people who haven't spoken yet, unless yours isn't still a hand raised, or you still do have something you want to say. You can lower it. You still do. That's good. Okay. But Elizabeth, you're with us, and you've asked, do you want to put your question, Elizabeth?
Right. Yes. I'm now. Am I now? Yes, I'm now audible. Yeah, I was wondering that with the management work, whether it be possible to structure it so that some things could be done by people with disabilities, and I'm thinking, you know, people who would need some help and supervision, so that they could take part. I mean, obviously there'll be things that they couldn't, but whether it would be possible to, you know, carve out such a slot that they could also be involved.
Good, Elizabeth. I don't know if anybody else wants to talk, but we will be sort of coming up with a management plan that says sort of what are the kinds of events and activities that we'll be doing. And I think we do need to look then that we're making sure that there is equality of access for all. Now, what we probably need to do is maybe have some support on this, you know, with anybody that comes, just to make sure that they are, you know, safe or they're accompanied as well. But absolutely, it is about equality of access. We've got to make sure that that's a possibility, yes. And Chris, you're taking us to sort of issues about permissions and access, and you're sort of saying, what's the plans for dog walking on the land?
You asked the question as was, so there are obviously a lot of people do walk dogs around the area and would want to walk it. But obviously with the set aside, there is this management and desire to obviously maintain the diversity there. So are you going to restrict dogs from being walked on that land or also on the long meadow as well? I think that would be something people would be interested in.
Daphne?
So that is definitely a question for the Friends group. That's going to be a long-term policy, and we'd want to have some evidence of what effect dogs were having on wildlife. We already know that there are some places where dogs could be terrible, like if we had a series of dogs paddling in the pond, you know, like 2 or 3 a day, that would make it really hard for the pond vegetation to grow and for the insects that lay their eggs on that vegetation to survive at all. I've seen dog visited ponds, but it might be that we'd end up with 3 ponds and one of them could be a dog paddle pond and the other one's not. So that's something that you can't say now, well, you know, someone else is in charge and is going to decide all this stuff. You should be involved, and that's something that's up for discussion. Now, the Croft Close set aside is pretty well defended by some very thorny bushes. On the other hand, there's definitely wildlife in there that doesn't want to be eaten by dogs. So it's going to be it's up for discussion. Yeah.
Good. I think that's what you'll hear there, Chris, is we know that's going to be a thorny issue, and there'll be several other thorny issues. And what we don't want to do, the first signal is not that somebody else is in charge now, they're putting in the rules, they're imposing the rules, and suddenly what people will find is that it's restricted enjoyment of the land. So we're very, very sensitive and alive to that issue. And so whatever decisions will be done together with the Friends group and based on, you know, evidence and wishes, in a way, that's what we're going to do. But all the time we've got those 4 objectives, and it was Jenny that was saying to us, you know, we've got to keep those 4 objectives, which are nature conservation, public access, the education and the heritage. And how do we find the balance between those all of the time? That's going to be our real challenge there. Guy, you've had your hand up a long time, but I don't think it's very tired because it's just.
Thank you. Thanks, Pippa. I wanted to ask, I think it's important, probably important to a lot of people. The meadow, which is variously known as Chestnut Meadow, next to Long Meadow, it's sort of a continuation to Long Meadow. I mean, it's just as attractive. It's used in exactly the same way by probably exactly the same people who walk on Long Meadow. You know, when they walk the dogs or if they're just walking on Long Meadow, they'll walk in Chestnut Meadow as well. I don't know the ownership. I don't know the status. I don't know what's going to happen to that. Can anyone give us a clue what's to happen on that with that one?
I know that when Sally was first interested, she thought that was part of it as well. It's because it doesn't naturally part of it. But Howard, do you want to talk to that? Kind of the bigger picture, what our bigger vision is as well, perhaps.
Yes, indeed. I mean, Chestnut Meadow is owned, I believe, by the farmer who owns the land to the west of Abbey Farm. At the moment, I'd say there are paths that everybody walks without hindrance. In the Rights of Way campaign, there's lots of evidence that those fields have been walked for a very long time, but we aren't pursuing claiming those paths at the moment because they're not contentious. In terms of buying more land, those chestnut fields would be beautiful, but if we were to try and buy more land, and I have to say that my vision, I would love the Long Meadow and Croft Close set aside to become a big park. Urban areas need parks, and Long Meadow and Croft Close set aside are wonderful, but wouldn't it be great if we could expand that park towards West Wick? And our first priority would be to buy land, not the chestnut field, but to buy land which would link Long Meadow to Croft Close set aside. Because then people can just simply walk in a circular route. But that is all very much for the future. There's been no communication in terms of buying Chestnut Field or any other fields. First things first, and we've only just, well, we haven't yet secured this land, and because obviously we need to raise quite a lot of money. But yeah.
But we have
definitely for the future.
It's a bigger picture. What we want to make sure is that these aren't little isolated islands and pockets. And so we're also linking in with the Cambridge Nature Recovery Network. And in that, they've done a habitat mapping of all of Cambridgeshire. And for most sort of our area, they don't see very much, but this particular part, they're calling it fen edge orchards and droves. And this is sort of the kind of habitat that they're describing our area to. And we are a stepping stone between some of more of the more biodiverse areas that you'd see around Magog and other areas like that, and Wicken Fen. And these kind of stepping stones of ecological connectivity are absolutely crucial. So, that's what we want to do, is make sure we've got that corridor, we've got these stepping stones, and we're part of the bigger Cambridge Nature Recovery Network and even the Fens Biosphere, because the Fens Biosphere reaches right up to this land, with all the drainage ditches as well. And so we're part of even that amazing sort of landscape and habitat too. So that's very good. And I see Jenny.
Sorry,
Howard.
Could I just finish off? We've heard, and we're talking about vision, and we're talking about it being in the future. One thing I would like to inject is that when Wandlebury was bought by the public, it must be, well, I won't say how many years ago. It took 3 weeks to raise all of the money. So maybe if we could raise our money in 3 weeks, we can be starting to think about what next much sooner than we might all be thinking about tonight.
Both Wandlebury and
3 weeks, everybody.
Both Wandlebury and Magog did express sort of surprise and admiration that we were able to purchase the land at current land prices, though, because I think their biggest sort of advice was buy it 20 years ago.
Yeah, but Cambridge is a lot more wealthy now, Anthony, than it was 20 years ago.
No, I agree with you, Howard. If we could sort this out in June, then we could get on to some of these other projects in summer. And yeah, I
think probably what Kate would say as well is, in terms of the fundraising, what we're raising funds for is to purchase the land and sort of pay Anthony the money that he's loaning and purchase the land forever. We've done a lot of work on the legals to make sure this is forever. In legal terms, in planning terms, in perpetuity means 25 years. And we don't want that. We want this forever. So we're really looking at all the ways in which we can lock in community ownership of the land forever. And when I was talking about these stepping stones, that's even just with the pieces of land that we're doing. But we've got to do this job, because the money is not just to buy it, it's to be able to maintain it and manage it, forever as well. So, part of the funding that we're raising is for that ongoing management of this land so that it's well maintained. So I want to say, oh, Anthony, just yes.
Yeah, I just sort of wanted to add very quickly to what Howard was saying. I think there's definitely, certainly within the committee, lots of appetite to repeat this. So it is down to the community to demonstrate the level of support we need. If we can pull this project off, we will have a track record. It will be probably easier to go and try and acquire other land as well. So and I think pretty much everyone is up for it. So it's down to everyone on this Zoom meeting to go and encourage lots of other people to donate. And once we've pulled this one off, I think, yeah, let's rinse and repeat.
Yep, and have a look at the neighbourhood plan and see what are the other local green spaces that we managed to designate as part of the neighbourhood plan too, because they probably need securing as well. Hugh, you've got your hand up.
Hello.
Hello.
I put a question into the chat. Currently, the old gravel pits, known I think as the dips, are being used by teenagers and sort of slightly younger for tree slides and tree swings and adventures and all sorts of things. Will that be, will there be tolerance and encouragement for kids to do some of the things that kids like to do in that kind of way? Because I think it's a really important space for them to just muck about in.
And I've just found it, and what you've put is, you say, I know the dips are not included in the sale, in the pieces of land that we are purchasing.
So this would have to be a replacement provision or tolerance or what have you.
Yeah, and also I think there's sort of community. Anthony, do you want to talk about sort of the
I thought you were going to stop me. Yes.
No.
As some of you might know, one of the reasons I got involved in this to begin with was we've been trying to find a location for a pump track in the village, which is, to be fair, is nothing like as extreme as the dips. It's a much more level sort of ground, and it's designed for small kids as well as big kids. And there's quite a lot of support. Probably quite a lot of it overlapping with this group. There's quite a lot of support for it in the village. So 100%, if we can find a piece of land, that's next on the list, I think. Yes, that's basically it.
And I think everybody shares the fact that we know they need this. They need to be able to have that opportunity to do this, Hugh, as you're saying. And at the moment we saw that conflicted with these two pieces of land, but absolutely that's a priority. Yeah. Sorry, Hugh.
No, I think that's a great answer, and it takes a broken leg to complete a childhood, so there's got to be a place for some them to do that.
Good, fantastic. And Anthony's put in there, obviously, as I said, we're focusing on this purchase now, but it doesn't mean that if anybody does know who the owners of these pieces of land may be, then let us know, and that would be good. Nigel, you said you gave me a contact a couple of years ago when we completed it. Yes, and I did contact him as well. So, but he was the tenant farmer, I think, the contact that you gave me. I'm going to say thank you, everybody. It's 9:10 nearly. So this lovely session was fantastic. Lovely to see you all. There's still 75 of us here on this call. And thank you, everybody, for just the amazing community spirit. And we'll see you soon. See you at the feast, at the village feast. Do sign up. Everybody that's saying they've got information, knowledge, things that they can help with, sign up online to the volunteer and let you know how we do it. See you at the village feast, and also with Daphne's guided tours. And as soon as we're able to meet a large group, we're going to have that first face-to-face launching of a sort of friends group meeting where we'll agree together how that comes together and works. So lovely to see all of you. Party on Long Meadow, fantastic.
Yay.